Warning. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect that of the HHN TV or its constituent entities. Furthermore, some parents may not find this content suitable for children as it contains explicit language and subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello, everybody. I'm Drew Duncan. The show's fired up, and we are live. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. Take your device and play Fired Up by Drew Duncan, iTunes, iHeart. Wherever you're listening, I am there. And, of course, you can always download the HHN TV app, a.k.a. the Hip Hop Network, on your Roku, any smart TV, your iPhone, your iPad, Droid, wherever. It's there, my man. Google Fired Up by Drew Duncan. I'm going to pop right up, Brody, I promise you. Plenty to get to today. Russell Wilson has officially been named the starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to be talking about the Colorado Buffaloes, Prime and company taking on North Dakota State. We're going to be talking about Jamar Chase, still not fully in practice. We're going to be talking about Dalvin Cook, signed to the practice squad with the Dallas Cowboys. Jonathan Owens, despite missing a good part of training camp and preseason with the Chicago Bears in lieu of being in Paris for his wife Simone Biles, makes the roster. We're going to be talking about the Brady broadcast restrictions. Matter of fact, that's exactly what the NFL called it, was the Brady broadcast restrictions. So Coach Prime, his two sons, Shador, Shiloh, Travis Hunter, they're getting ready to take on North Dakota State. Before anybody says, oh, this isn't a big deal, it's a pretty big deal. Number one, anything that involves Deion Sanders is a big deal, whether anybody likes it or not. Don't give me this, here we go again. It's the beginning of the season. We got all year of this. This is going to die down after week 5, blah, blah, blah. We don't know that. We really don't know that. The other thing is, bear in mind that North Dakota State is not going to be a pushover for this football team. Since 2006, as a matter of fact, North Dakota State is 7-4 against D1 football teams. In fact, a couple of seasons, they have finished damn near in the top 25 rankings. At one point, North Dakota State won 39 games in a row, and that included 6 wins in a row over D1 schools. Well, the 39 in a row didn't include that, but they did have 6 wins in a row at one point against D1. Now, where they're coming up short going into this football game is, look, Tamarick, he goes to the Seattle Seahawks, so he's in the NFL, so you don't know what you're going to do at running back. You've got Cam Miller coming back at QB. Look, that dude's got a snap release. I could definitely see him in the NFL, but he's got to clean up a couple of things. That, number one, has a tendency to stare down his guys. But last season, he was the second leading rusher on that football team. What do you have, 4.7, somewhere in that neighborhood per tote? And really, what I love the most about North Dakota State, speaking of which, is despite the fact that they're probably going to be short running back this year, I don't think that's going to matter to them, especially in D2 play, for lack of a better term here. I'm still just D1, D2. That's all there is to it. In D2 play, one of the things that I love about them is they've got a lot of different looks. A lot of different formations. They will go single back, I formation. They'll run out of the pistol formation and all kinds of different variations of it. Shotgun. They run a lot of reverse plays. They use wide receivers as running backs. They do whatever they got to do to get the yards. I mean, last year, their primary back was averaging, 6.5 a tote? So when you've got a line that can dominate the line of scrimmage like that, and by the way, their last loss came in 2022 to D1. It was to Arizona, 31-28, if I remember was the score. They didn't get blown out in that game. Matter of fact, they were up with about 5.5 remaining until Arizona scored a touchdown. This is not going to be some pushover for the Colorado Buffaloes. Not by any stretch of the imagination. And look, as much as I love Coach Prime, Colorado, they've got some things that they have got to clean up. Number one, I want to see him run the football a lot more. Damn near 5 yards a carry a season ago. Put the ball on the ground. Get some tough yards. Run the clock a little bit. Wear the defensive line down. Everybody talked about the blocking last year with Colorado, which, firstly, they had some games that were really bad, especially the Oregon game. That was horrendous in terms of the O-line. But Shedeur, and I said this last season, he has a tendency to hold on to the football, even when he's got yards in front of him. And it's not for lack of wheels, because Shedeur definitely has them. He has got to stop holding on to the football. And if they find some balance, it'll help take the pressure off of the pass game. I don't think they have the incapability of running the football. I just don't think they're choosing to run the football enough. Now, somebody's going to go and they're going to look up the stat. Look, towards the end of the season, Colorado started running the football a lot more. I think if it becomes a primary focus, it'll really help Shedeur. And by the way, for all of you Shedeur haters out there, I want you to know something. He only threw 3 picks a season ago. And as far as what he said about everybody playing them and that's their Super Bowl, you have to understand, Shedeur is not talking about it's the biggest game of the year because it's the biggest game of the year. It's because they want to be able to see or say, they beat Deion Sanders in a game of football. They want to be able to say they beat his 2 sons, Travis Hunter, which, by the way, with him, look, Coach Prime's got to figure that thing out, okay? Either offense or defense, and you're on offense, and then sometimes you're on defense, or you're on defense, and sometimes you're on offense. But that's got to be it. He cannot survive the way that he was being used a season ago. He's not going to make it through another year like that. It's just not going to happen. And Prime is taking the tread off the tires, so to speak, and he is potentially damaging an NFL career. Let's not forget that Hunter was the most sought-out player coming out of high school that year. And he committed to Jackson State to go with Coach Prime instead of going to Alabama with Nick Saban, where he probably would have been the difference maker. Last season, potentially, could have won a championship had Hunter been there. He is a game breaker. That's all there is to it. And he's not just skilled. He understands the game of football. He just gets it. I think it comes really easy to him. He is a very smart football player. Man, they have got to use him better. Way too much. Who do I like to win? I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I mean, I got real ballsy and said that I thought Georgia Tech was going to be Florida State. With this game, if I'm keeping it a buck, I'm not sure who wins. I mean, this is just the ins and the outs. In order for Colorado to survive, Travis Hunter, I think, personally, needs to be on offense as his primary, where he's going to be lined up at. Every now and again, you throw him in on defense, maybe some kick returns. That's about it. And if they run the football, they'll do a lot better because North Dakota State's going to be coming for him. They're great with being creative with blitz packages. Prime has got to be real careful. This is not a pushover football team. I'm going to tell you that much right now. So, as many will remember, Tom Brady signed a huge contract before he even retired with Fox. 10 years, $375 million. But Tom Brady, speaking of one way or the other, may have to decide whether or not he wants to really be in that booth or whether he wants to have 10% stake in the Las Vegas Raiders. Mind you, while everybody's saying he's with the Raiders, this has not been approved yet. This is not a final. Okay? The deal is not done. In the NFL, in the event that a deal does get done, they have literally created what they call the Brady broadcast. Literally, that's what they are calling it. The Brady broadcast restrictions. Well, what are some of the restrictions? Can't go into another team's facility. There's that. He can't witness a practice. There goes that. He can't go to the broadcast production meetings because they meet with head coaches and key players. Then on top of that, he wouldn't be able to criticize officials because as a part owner in the NFL, he would be subject to the rules of being critical of refs. We've all seen how that goes down in the NBA and the NFL. Hey, Tom, what'd you think of that call there by the official? Can't tell you. Back to you, Bob. That's how that's going to go down. Tom, how'd they miss that call? No comment. So all in all, it would pretty much not even matter. And for anybody saying, well, none of this stuff is a big deal. Look, as somebody who's a journalist and who's covered fights at Bellator, now the PFL, etc., I could tell you right now that during media day, that is where you gain 90% of all of your information. You're able to interview these guys one-on-one. You're able to talk to them. You're able to find out things. You're able to look at schemes. You're able to do so many different things. And then when you're one-on-one with the broadcast production meetings, you're in there and everybody's going to have an idea and a generalization of what's going on. They're going to be talking to you about a lot of intricate details, some things that you're not even allowed to say once you leave that area. That's why it's a private meeting. That's how Brent Musburger found out a lot of stuff that he did about, a lot of these kids playing college football, found out about their backgrounds. That one-on-one time, it's huge. Anybody's going to say, well, Brady can just go and watch film and, it'll be no big deal. It is a big deal. They are paying him to do all of these things. Sure, they're paying him to be a face. They're paying him because he's Tom fucking Brady, okay? They're paying him to be there. This isn't quantum physics. But all the other things, he can't even go into the facility. Do you know what that means? You're not live. Not on location. So the reality is it doesn't work out. And there's too much there. Because the other thing that Brady's not going to be able to do is, let's say they don't have him call a game, right? Because he's supposed to be replacing Greg Olsen, who had a lot of the same restrictions when he was playing with the Carolina Panthers. As a matter of fact, he couldn't even do a game that they did against the Vikings, if I remember correctly, because Carolina was getting ready to play them the next week. So the NFL said, no, you're not going to be in there basically scouting them, right? And we just had this whole thing with Michigan. Right? So that's where they're getting at here, right? You can't just be out here scouting and then going back and going, hey, this is what they're going to do. So it is huge. There's this whole thing going on right now. And plus, we all know the past with the New England Patriots. This is huge. Because any team that loses, they're going to be able to look at this and go, if they allow Brady in a facility to watch these practices, to be in on these meetings, they're going to go, man, we know that Tom Brady went back. We just know that he did. Set us up, bro. That's how it's going to go down. Look at the Rams, their head coach. He had been in that broadcast booth for years. I still maintain that was partly why the Rams were so good. because he knew the teams. He had been studying them intricately. Fastest show on turf. Remember that? I still believe that it played a role. It's all there is to it. I'm not saying Dick Vermeil was not a good coach. I'm just saying that he had a lot of time to study, to learn new ways of doing things. Now, here's the bottom line to me. This is going to have to go one of two ways. In order to make everything easier on everybody else, either Tom Brady is just going to have to say to hell with it with the Raiders and go to the broadcast booth. Because, again, all the aforementioned things, and then like I began to say, if they have him out of a game and they have him on the panel, he then can't make a prediction. So that's illegal. And he's not going to be able to gamble either. At least not openly, because he's going to be subject to the NFL gambling rules. Or they're going to lose money or something, because who knows how much they've already paid Tom Brady. And he takes on with the Raiders, and then everybody just goes, man, to hell with it. This is going to be too big of a fiasco. Now, would Fox more than likely be willing to sacrifice things? More than likely, because Brady is such a huge name. His games, we all know that it's going to go through the roof. We all saw what Tony Romo did after the fact, right? Brady's going to triple that. It's the way that it is. He's the GOAT. So, of course, he's going to triple it. Maybe even quadruple. The numbers are going to be insane. Absolutely ridiculous. People will watch a game just to hear his commentary, I promise you. I think it's going to be a mess. I think, given all those facts, that, to be honest with you, it's not worth the headache. But I'm not Tom Brady, so it is what it is. We've seen the man take on a hell of a lot in his career. I'm sure Fox, at the end of the day, would be willing to put up with it, but I don't know if the Raiders would. Again, the deal it's not official. That's just all there is to it. All right, really quick here. Dalvin Cook. He is a practice squad member now with the Dallas Cowboys. Does anybody remember when Dalvin Cook was the best running back in the NFL? When he made Pro Bowl after Pro Bowl, 1,300 yards on the ground, how many more receiving? Man, he just couldn't stay healthy. And it's crazy because I guess a part of me gets it. I guess a part of me thinks to myself, Dalvin Cook may be still kind of a big deal. Maybe people are only announcing this because it's August and he's Dalvin Cook. I don't feel like anybody's trying to downplay his career. I think people are more shocked at how his career has gone more than anything. He was literally the man. And I don't think for a while there it was debatable as to whether or not he was the best back in the NFL. I mean, in his prime, you could have put him up against C-Mac any day of the week. Now he's a practice squad guy. I guess more than anything, he's there in case everything else goes to hell. I guess more than anything, he's there giving some really good guidance. Kind of, like how quarterbacks are expected to do, right? We always talk about quarterbacks. Hey, so-and-so can really learn from them. They can learn how to develop. You can teach them all these things. You can mentor them. I mean, I guess more than anything, Dalvin could play that role, whether or not he wants to or will. Look, given where he's been in his career, the fact that he's humbly accepted this, to me, that tells me a lot about his character to begin with, if I'm being honest with you. So he might be a guy that's willing to do it. But unfortunately, the injuries and everything else really just hindered his career. And I don't know that he'll ever get back to that place, and it's a damn shame. Because people want to talk about Hall of Fame trajectory. If there was anybody who was on it, it is damn sure Dalvin Cook. And I don't think that there's any ifs, ands, or buts about that. I think if you were to talk to Minnesota fan, there was a time when they probably would have held him in the same esteem as Adrian Peterson. And I'm not fucking around. AP was an absolute dog. And I think Dalvin Cook was that direction. But he got slowed up, man. Combined with some coaching. It's unfortunate. It is what it is. I really do feel bad for him, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, what do you do? Because what is he really going to bring to the table at this point? And is he worth the financial risk of somebody who's not going to have the same output as they once did? I just, at this point, you might as well consider his career over. If I'm being 100% honest with you. I don't think there's any other way that you can put it. I think his career is done. It's unfortunate, but nature of the beast as well. Nobody can play forever, you know? Man, speaking of AP, you know, man, I remember this one game where AP literally, and I mean this, he could have scored. All he had to do was straight ahead, my man. Bro went way out of his way just to go and hit somebody. You want to talk about an absolute animal playing football. I always wondered what he would have been like as a linebacker or something, man. I feel like as a linebacker or safety, that if he would have put the wood on you, you wouldn't be waking up for a while. Especially back when he first started playing. 05, 06, 07, 08, when football was still allowed to just be a hardcore sport. Forget that. When people talk about having that dog in them, I hate that term because it's way overused. Adrian Peterson is literally one of the greatest running backs of all time. I don't give a damn what anybody says. So underrated, absolutely had that dog in him. I couldn't stand him when he was at OU. Man, when I saw that dude in the NFL, forget about it. That man was hardcore. So Jamar Chase still isn't officially practicing, right? Showed up in shorts and a shirt. Buddy looked like he ain't showered for a few days. Probably been hanging out inside or doing whatever Jamar Chase does. Brody was literally just walking around practice yesterday like, hi, diddly dee, Jamar Chase for me. Like, he just, man, another holdout. Remember when we had like one a year and it was considered career suicide when you did that? Now, everybody does it. And I don't think it's a bad thing. If anybody's new here, I've said it a million times, right? I'm not going to be in another man's pockets. It's risk reward. Buddy wants to go out and do it. Let him. You got to get what you're worth, my man. Your days in the league are numbered. You can't play football forever. Get it while it's hot. Set to make a mill this year, but after CD just set the market on fire, nah. You might as well forget that. And look, they got to do something, right? I mean, with Joe Burrow and that offensive line, the O-line is bad enough as it is. You got no run game over there. I mean, you got to do something. You got to give Burrow something. You have a head coach in Zach Taylor who's been completely carried by Joe Burrow for the most part. Last season, don't get me wrong, a little shocking. Did a lot given the situation, but still, Burrow's made him look really good. But look, for me, this is the case in point, though. Okay, and I understand everybody screws up, but does anyone remember last year when Burrow was hurt and Zach Taylor was like, "Oh, he's not hurt. Oh, everything is fine. He was going to be at practice," and then Burrow wasn't at practice. And then he said Chase is going to be at practice. Then he ended up having to say, "I may have spoke too soon about Chase." I just thought, man, this is kind of a repeat. It wasn't that, holdouts, injury, all that kind of stuff intertwined a season ago with Burrow and the Bengals. I got to tell you, and then he tried to claim that it had nothing to do with the holdout. But then he kind of backtracked on that statement later on, about Joe Burrow. Now he's basically doing the same thing with Jamar Chase. I mean, does this guy have any fucking clue what is going on with his players? So, yes, Joe Burrow is making Zach Taylor look like a hell of a football coach. Let's not forget that Zach Taylor had Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes. Never even sniffed 10 wins. I mean, that ought to tell you everything you need to know, right? Texas Tech. How that guy got a job at the NFL, I mean, he's got to know somebody or something. And he's lasted a while. I think he's lasted because people probably feel like Cincinnati should have won that Super Bowl. But, if Doc Rivers is going to hang on to that one championship win for I don't know how long do you hold on to a Super Bowl loss for? Hey, remember when we got to the Super Bowl? We were ahead. Yeah, you lost. The Bengals are a very confusing football team. And it's mainly because they start off really badly, but then somehow, middle of the season, they just work. Every year. They just work. I don't get it. I don't know if Taylor doesn't know how to prepare people until middle of the year. I don't know if it's the game planning. I don't know if it's not really kind of getting in the groove with his players or the playbook or, something. But it's been like this the last 2 or 3 years now, right? I mean, hell, even the year they went to the Super Bowls, like they started off horrendously. Snuck it in the playoffs, end up in the Super Bowl. Then they start off bad again. We're going, well, guess we overrated them last season. They get back into the playoffs. Then last year they were in a division where they were one of the teams that could say we had a winning record because literally every team in that division had a winning record a season ago. And they were so all over the place a season ago. I don't know what to expect from the Cincinnati Bengals. I really don't. I don't think anybody knows what the hell is going on with the Cincinnati Bengals. I will say this much. I know it seems like I say I don't always agree with paying somebody, but I think in the case of Jamar Chase, you're probably going to have to. Because I think you realize without him there, the receiving core is just not as good. You don't have a run game. Your offensive line is garbage. And Joe Burrow's going to have his safety net. I mean, that's just all there is to it. I don't. How do you justify, no, we don't need him? I mean, I would love to hear that story. Because the reality is, and I say this every single time because every single time it is going to be relevant. If you lose a certain player, do you get worse? And if you lose Jamar Chase, you 100% get worse. And I love Joe Burrow. But, man, he can only do so much by himself. At some point, you got to give him something. Let's not forget what happened to Deshaun Watson while he was in Houston, to the point where it angered J.J. Watt so much that he said, "F this, I'm out. We've got this quarterback, and you guys are taking away his best players. What in the is going on? He dipped. Who could blame him? So for me, if you want to have a shot at the playoffs, at the bare minimum, you need him. I would love to have somebody prove me wrong. If you can, I'll entertain it. That's all I'm saying. I just, no. You let him go, off to Pittsburgh he goes. I can promise you that. Speaking of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Russell Wilson is officially the starter. It's amazing that people are surprised by this somehow. What did you think was going to happen? I know Mike Tomlin came out and said it's a competition. You know how many times Mike Tomlin has said that? Even when he had Ben Roethlisberger, he's always said the quarterback position is never safe. Did you really think that they brought in Russell Wilson just so that way they could see what happens? No. Is his job on hiatus? Well, that could be a different question. Look, they don't start off 3-1, 2-2 at the minimum. Come week 5, week 6, Justin Fields is in. But I don't see that happening, provided that they're able to get the run game going with Najee Harris and the offensive line learns how to protect. When you have reporters going, dude, the offensive line literally asking it that way. Do you know what that means? That means, hey, man, we saw that O-line. We know that that means everybody else is going to watch this and know that come on. And Stephen A. Smith, honestly, play like it's your life depended on it. He said the same crap last season. Look, I'm not going to sit around in front like I didn't question Russell Wilson's manhood, because I absolutely did. I 110% questioned it. Here's the thing, though. Russell Wilson proved that he's not a pussy. I got news for everybody. You think he's a chump? That man was getting run through the coals by Walmart, the Denver Broncos, and Sean Payton. And what did he do? Stayed calm. Denver won 6 games in a row. Go look at his numbers, then talk to me. In addition, I want everybody to know something. Peyton never treated Drew Brees like that. Not once. But he did Russ. And I firmly believe that them dropping 70 to Miami could have been potentially sabotage. I'm not saying it is, but it could have been. I know this much. Cortland Sutton fumbled the football how many times in that game alone? What about Hamlin on the reverse? Russ had no control over a lot of stuff that happened, but he was blamed for everything with the Denver Broncos. Then they told him, hey, man, if you don't rework your contract with this injury clause, we are going to bench you. And he kept playing. And when Peyton got in his ass, Russ just gave him a look. Like, man, I know what you're doing, Broham, but not today. It ain't going to work. I'm not going to lose my over you. You ain't going to do this. We're not playing this game. Then he ends up still getting $38 million for the Broncos. The other mill was covered by the Pittsburgh Steelers. $39 million this year, Russell Wilson. Now, if that's not then I don't know what the is. Talk to me about this. Talk to me. Do not. No. Get the out of here. Russ proved to be nothing but man. Well, he wanted this and he wanted that in a parking spot in his own office. And man, stop. Do you know how many people get that, but it never gets talked about? But Russ asked for it, and suddenly it's a crime, and he's being corny. And I'm not saying that he can't be corny, okay? He absolutely can. But Russ is manned up. And honestly, just watching him, something feels right about him in that Pittsburgh Steelers uniform. I can't put my finger on it, but it just feels like it works. Russ hasn't been all over the media and stuff like he was in Denver. He hasn't been doing any of that stuff, man. Russ has been real low-key. I think Russ understands exactly where he's at right now. Telling you, I like Pittsburgh a lot this year. I could be wrong, but I do like him a lot. And he was the best option for the record. If anybody's watched Justin Fields, you would know that Russell is the best option. That's all there is to it. Now, simultaneously, we'll never know what he looks like with a team around him. Did have DJ Moore, and really the offensive line wasn't that bad in Chicago. If I'm really being honest, they weren't great, but not as bad as they were in Pittsburgh, not as bad as they are in Denver, not as bad as they are with the Philadelphia Eagles or the New York Jets, the Tennessee Titans, the Cincinnati Bengals. There are offensive lines in the NFL that have been way worse. Seattle Seahawks. Okay, so he wasn't in the greatest situation, but he wasn't in the worst. Do I think it's fucked up what they did? Letting him, trading him and then getting all that talent? Yeah, I do. If I'm keeping it a buck, I do. But I think at the end of the day, they saw what everybody else sees, or a lot of other people, and that's just he's not cut for the NFL. I think he's a career backup. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, come on, man. Fitzpatrick, how many people love that guy? And honestly, he played better when he was a backup than he was whenever he was named actually the starter. Oh, Fitzmagic, isn't that what they called him? So it's not a bad gig, okay? We make a backup quarterback in the NFL sometimes out to be this lowly position. It's really not. It means you're still better than most other guys out there. It's not the worst thing in the world. Guy can come in, win you a few football games, hang on to the football, mind your time, run a really simple offense. Not difficult. But I just think this was the best move. We'll see what happens this season, obviously. So Jonathan Owens, well, this is going to make some waves. So his wife, Simone Biles, was competing in Paris, and so that's where he was for the majority of the time. And he made the football team anyway. He had to practice a whole hell of a lot. But here's the thing, though, because somebody out there is going to go, dude, sounds like you have a problem with this. I don't. Ooh, Aaron Rodgers. Okay, look, here's the thing. And I need you to hear me out. Listening ears, everybody. This was in his contract. It was in his contract. That is why he was missing time. They already knew what they were getting themselves into. Coach Eberflus was all about it with the Chicago Bears. He said, dude, go ahead, go for it. Go Team USA. Made a tweet about it, the whole shebang. Go support your wife. I think this is great. Pretty simple, right? It's the difference. Oh, Aaron just kind of wakes up in the morning and he goes, oh, man. I don't think I want to play football today. Hey, coach, I ain't coming in. Click. That's why it's unexcused, Broham. See, this was excused. You know why? Because his wife is one of the greatest Olympians of all time. She's representing the United States of America. Yeah, bro, go and support her. you're good. Your job's great when you come back. And you know why his job is secure when he comes back? Because he's had over 200 tackles in the last 2 seasons. He's a safety. Last line of defense. And he's one of the more underrated safeties in the NFL. And the Bears know they're going to need some defense. Because you got a rookie QB, and while they're putting all their eggs in one basket and they can make all the moves during the offseason for receivers and all this and that and the third they want to, the reality is this. You're probably going to need to make some stops. Because there will be fumbles, there will be interceptions. Caleb's about to get exposed to the NFL the hard way, whether anybody likes it or not. I don't get nervous. That's cool. I'm glad you don't get nervous, Broham. Just because you get nervous don't mean you don't get hurt. And I don't mean that in a negative way, and I'm not saying I want to see him get hurt. I'm just saying I don't think he's fully understands what it's like to be in the NFL yet. It is a mental game. It is a physical game. This is not for the weak at heart. You think Mahomes survives in the NFL because he's a punk? No. He's not a chump, man. You think John Elway survived in the NFL because he's a chump? Joe Montana, Steve Young, Donovan McNabb, Randall Cunningham, Tom Brady. They're tough. You got to be tough to be an NFL quarterback. When the team loses, it's your fault. When they win, everybody wants to grope you, tell you how fucking amazing you are and pat you on the ass. It's just not the way that it works, man. Thinking that you could just show up and you just win games. Yeah, I'm glad the players are, on his side. We're going to be unstoppable. We'll see. All right, so real quick here, this is something that I saw, and I gotta do it. They were showing the Giants players, and they were asking them who the greatest rapper of all time is. The sickening amount of times I saw Drake. I think one dude even said Future. People are gonna hate me for it, but I'm a big Future guy. Yeah, bro, we really are. Get out of here, Future's dope, but he ain't one of the great. He's not. Come on, man. He ain't scratching top 10. What the? Shout out Gucci, man. The fuck? Look, Broham. For the record, Ice Cube is the greatest rapper of all time. Helped start the NWA, wrote all their lyrics. When it didn't work out, he told Jerry to go and fuck himself, bashed the out of the office. Then wrote a diss record and basically ended NWA. Then starts a new group, West Side Connection. I mean, the man was still putting out full albums. What was it, 2017? Everything's Corrupt? Tell me that album wasn't hard. Chase Down the Bully? Damn. Chase Down the Bully is flat out sick. I love that damn song. And here's the thing. I don't even agree with the whole message politically. But, man, he was spitting on that joint, Brody. And that beat, forget about it. But I didn't see Drake. Bro, I ain't got a problem with Drake. I just GOAT. Man didn't even write half his own lyrics. Come on, man. Let's just pump our brakes, kid, on the GOAT. If they were to say he's one of the greatest entertainers of all time, then yes, absolutely. There's no denying that Drake is a phenomenal entertainer. But rapper? Miss me with that one. I'm going to tell you that right now. Drake. Some of them said Lil Wayne. I'm cool with that response. But Drake? Yeah, you heard me. Drake. All right, everybody, I am Drew Duncan. The show's fired up, and we are live. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. Take a device and play Fired Up by Drew Duncan, iTunes, iHeart. Wherever you're listening, I am there. Obviously, tomorrow we're going to be talking about what happened with Colorado, North Dakota State. We're going to be talking college football for Sunday. Obviously, USC, LSU, that's going to be a big matchup. And, of course, it is Friday, which means our MMA insider, Austin Ford, is going to be joining us. In the meantime, your local programming is next. Don't you dare touch that dial.